Yeah, no, it was very cool.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. It was funny because Pam, who was doing the ultrasound, she's like, we had just gotten started, and she's like, are you an athlete? I'm like,
what are you at?
I'm like, well, right. I'm like, well, thank you. She's like, just your heart rate is really low. So she's like, it's just not really low, but it's low. And then she's like, that's pretty common in an athlete. And I said, well, I do work out, but I said, I don't think I consider myself an athlete. She's like, well, I don't work out, so you're an athlete, to my opinion. So.
And you tipped her.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah. Damn.
Good athletes would tip her.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not a good athlete. I'm just an athlete. So, but it was so relaxing, man. I could have fallen asleep in there. I'm like, if I had a warm blanket right now.
Pam.
But you had Pam.
She's like, I can get you one. I'm like, no, really, I don't need one. I will fall asleep.
Can we spoon?
I'm a snuggler.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was going to be a whole lot of spooning with Pam.
Can we snuggle?
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon Boys, the podcast where guys get together to talk about bourbon, about life, lore, libation, and everything that comes with being a dad. We aren't bourbon snobs, but we're just a group of guys who like bourbon for what it is and how it tastes. It's pretty simple. This is podcast number 17, and I am Kurt, your host tonight, and with me are my Bourbon Boys. We've got Elton.
Hello, hello.
We've got Dew.
Yo.
We've got Krat.
Hey.
And we've got a special guest tonight, McCauley Williams from BR Distilling. So welcome, McCauley. Tonight we are going to go through 3 different bourbons. Actually, we're going to do a bourbon, a rye, and it's another called Juke Joint, all from BR Distilling. And we're going to learn a little bit about that distillery, about McCauley and his team in Memphis, Tennessee. So glad to be back with you guys, taste a little bourbon. So let's get started.
So Kurt,
yeah.
This is our very first session with a distiller, with a guest.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You're number 1, McCauley.
You are the first.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a segment we were calling it Staring Down the Barrel. And it's talking to the small guys who are getting out there and doing what they love to do. So you are the first.
Cool.
So we're gonna jump right in. As you heard, this is about life, lore, and libation. So we're gonna really structure the conversation around that, McCauley, tonight. But so sorry to put you on the spot. First question for you: what should be the first bottle we should open tonight?
Yeah, so I would start with our first product to market. The Blue Note Premium Small Batch.
Okay,
it's the 9-year product.
All right. And since you're the aficionado here from BR, we're gonna have you tell us a little bit about Blue Note.
Cool. We doing tasting notes or about the brand or the full spectrum?
Give us the full spectrum. Let's start with the tasting notes, and the bottle's being passed around right now, so we're each going to pour a little bit for ourselves. And
the first thing I would say is the name Blue Note, is a homage to the Memphis blues, right? So we're in Memphis, Tennessee. So this is our 9-year Tennessee bourbon, bottled at 93 proof. We've done that so it's inherently approachable, but it also still has enough strength to appeal to whiskey aficionados like yourself. Non-chill, you get a whole lot of maple, butterscotch, vanilla, caramel on the note and palate. But you'll get that leathery, oaky note that's really only comes from, aged bourbons aged 7+ years. So you get that mature note that you're looking for in your premium bourbon. It's got an inherently smooth finish, which we've designed and we've trademarked as smoother than smooth. Again, the goal with this product is to have something that can be appreciated by the highbrows like yourselves, but also by the lowbrows as well.
Wow. That's the first time I think I've ever been called highbrow.
I've never been called a highbrow, so we'll take that as a compliment. Fortunately, he doesn't know us well enough yet. That's great. That's great. So this was the first to come out of BR Distilling. Is that correct?
Yeah, we wanted to start with our most premium line first to really garner a strong reputation in the industry and within our community.
Okay.
So people know we're a really high quality product.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to get into some of the details a little later around the distillery, how it got started, and so forth. But so now we're going to drill you on a few questions. So talk to us a little bit about your background. I know a little bit. I shared your profile with these guys as well. But tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to bourbon. Let's start there.
Sure. So I'm a recovering attorney, as I like to say. But I practiced mergers and acquisitions and securities for the largest law firm in the Southeast. So I raised money for companies through debt and equity. I bought and sold companies, and I helped form a whole lot of companies along the way. And I've always wanted to do something inherently entrepreneurial. Had no idea that it was going to be in the craft spirit space. But I saw an opportunity from a client of mine, which was a liquidating vodka distillery. Liquidating assets and looking to go under. And I had helped them with that process, and then just sat there scratching my head thinking, man, what an interesting opportunity. Here is a licensed DSP sitting vacant. It's got all the space in the world, all the equipment we need to get started. I personally don't like vodka. I'll drink a vodka soda at a wedding or something when it's hot in the summer. But bourbon, I'm a bourbon and red wine guy, so I like things with a little more flavor. Anyways, I thought, why can't we convert this distillery into doing, American whiskey, bourbon, and Tennessee whiskey? And after about a year's worth of research, I convinced some of my clients and one of my mentors at the law firm to go in with me to buy this defunct distillery, recapitalize it, and then I convinced them that I was going to quit my job as a corporate attorney and give it a go as an entrepreneur trying to build a craft whiskey distillery and whiskey brands.
Okay, that's so cool. That's cool.
Conventional.
So let's step back a little bit. So before you got into this whole thing, tell us a little bit about, tell us what your first bourbon experience was.
Yeah, so, my first bourbon experience is probably when I was 14, stealing from my dad's liquor cabinet.
Okay, do tell.
I remember he had all the basics, and I think he used to mark the bottles, with the line, or he must have at least in my head. I think every teenager thinks there's some secret marking on it. And I remember one time he called me, I was probably in the 9th grade or something down and said, McCauley, we need to speak. I think you're dipping into the liquor cabinet. And I'm like, oh shit, how does he know? I only had 1 or 2 drinks. I wasn't even drinking. I just tried it because I thought it was cool. And he starts pulling out all these empty bottles of whiskey out of the liquor cabinet. And I'm looking at it and saying, oh God, that wasn't me. It's 10 empty bottles. Turns out their housekeeper had been hitting the bottle pretty hard during the
Nice.
And then he was trying to blame it on me. And I was like, hey, look, I'm going to come clean, Pops. I've had 1 or 2 sips out of that. I'm a curious 14, 15-year-old. But that I didn't drink 10 bottles of it. But then my first real experience was in college, with good old Evan Green label and Coke or ginger ale.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford a decent bourbon. And honestly, that left a bad taste in my mouth about bourbon. And throughout college, it's more of a beer and vodka guy. But in law school, you do a lot of studying. Law school is pretty isolating. You really have to teach yourself the courses. And I would go into hibernation at our family farm every year before finals, fall and spring semester. And I'd swing by my friend's liquor store. Hey, in the fall semester, it's cold. I was building a fire and studying and just a law hermit trying to learn as much as I could. And, after drinking coffee all day, you need to be able to go to sleep. And I was what if I get a nice bottle of bourbon? I think that sounds like something a lawyer or a Southern gentleman would do. He had put me on to good bottles, right? And so that's actually really how I started to get into bourbons. And that's my friend Cisco, for a shout out to him, who owns Joe's Wine and Liquor here in Memphis. And he started me off on Bowman because I went to University of Virginia at the time. So he started me off on Bowman as a Virginia bourbon. And then from there, it was Basil, Hayden, Booker's. We just kind of worked our way down kind of the mainstream bottles. And then lo and behold, I realized that bourbon's better than a green label Evan Williams bottle.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. That's a great story. So let's shift gears a little bit. Tell us about your family.
Yeah, so my name McCauley comes from a long family line. So my namesake actually fought in the Revolutionary War and earned a land grant in Western North Carolina, which was actually now modern-day Tennessee. And so that was for his service in the Revolutionary War. And that farm, McCauley Hill Farm, has been in our family ever since. I was named after him and the farm and everything. And we have a tobacco farm in Middle Tennessee. My father started practicing law and moved to Memphis, and that's where I was born and raised. And just fell in love with the city growing up, as so many Memphians do. And we just have a lot of city pride. So I live in Memphis, commute up there a lot, but there's really no family lineage to distilling. My grandfather started a winery on our tobacco farm, distilling, some moonshining, but this is more born out of my passion than some sort of family, heritage.
That's great. So had a few other in there, but I think you answered a lot of those, particularly how you kind of came to bourbon, how you got into bourbon, and kind of how you've landed where you're at today. Do you see this as your lifelong career going forward, or do you see yourself going back to a recovering attorney someday, or kind of trying to combine the both? Where are you at with that?
We'll see. I don't think I'm going back to practicing law. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. This is not my first business endeavor. It's definitely become my most serious. I'd like to think of myself as one day being a serial entrepreneur and doing many things, but I hope I'm always involved with this distillery and in the industry. I mean, I've definitely fallen in love with the industry in general.
Very cool. Guys, any questions for McCauley? Or
I love it. I mean, this 9 year is so smooth.
It's really good, right?
It's
really smooth.
Yeah, selfishly, I have to admit, McCauley, the first bottle that I got from Steve, I think it's Steve, right? I selfishly did not share it with these guys because I opened it and was like, this is really good. So, and we were always going to do something around a music theme or, something of that nature, and we just never got around to it. And unfortunately, I drank the whole first bottle. So
lucky for you.
Yeah, lucky for me. So, and again, thanks for getting the stuff to us, because I know it took us a little bit, but we got there, and it's really great to have you here. So I'm going to pass it. Well, first of all, what do you guys think? So talk to me a little bit about the Blue Note that we just tasted.
Well, the first of all, McCauley really love this bourbon. You mentioned the nose and the maple and the butterscotch, and the first thing I got was maple in a big way. I didn't really pick up on the butterscotch quite as much, but definitely on the maple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I lean more to the butterscotch myself.
Really?
Yeah, so definitely like it a lot. McCauley, you talked about some of your journey into the finer spirits, Bowman and Ford, all the way up to Booker in your list there. When you were thinking about getting into the higher end spirits, was there one you keep measuring yourself and your brands against?
One that stuck out to me, it was not necessarily as consciously measuring against, but Eagle Rare.
Okay.
Nice.
Yep.
One amazing package, cool story and everything, but also just an inherently drinkable bourbon. Again, something that can be appreciated by folks newer. Or you give somebody that's not into whiskey a drink of Booker's, and they're going to make a crazy face and look at you like you're crazy for serving it to them. It's just too hot. Right? It's unapproachable.
Yep.
So I want to create something that was something that somebody like you guys that are drinking fine bourbons can appreciate, for it's inherently approachable and flavorful, that smooth characteristic that can get more people into drinking bourbons, right? That's the goal, is to let's make the rising tide bring more folks into drinking bourbon and just rise the category.
Yeah, and you've done that, like you said. We talk a lot as we taste different bourbons of this is a good bourbon for somebody just entering the category, or somebody who's been in it a while. Like you said, maybe looking for something a little hotter or more exotic. But I think you nailed it. This is a really good flavor, but it is smooth and approachable, and one that can absolutely be an introductory and bring people into the bourbon family.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think that there's. I mean, if you think about this is your first bourbon in, it's really smooth. It's what, 93?
93, yeah.
It's up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got to go too far outside of it too. I mean, this is almost a tease. It's a great bourbon to start with, because I think it's, like you said, McCauley, it's really approachable. But I also think it's a great bourbon.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be hard for someone to taste a second bourbon after that if it's not a real high quality bourbon.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, I think what I like about it is I think I'm kind of with both of you. Not that I like to agree with David, but
Jeez, here we go.
but I think it's the taste I get in the front, and then what I get in the back is different. And I think it's that butterscotch that comes out for me. There's a warm sense to it, and I just find it overall, all around, a really good drink. So. Well done, McCauley.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I just wanted to emphasize, when we say approachable, it's a balancing act, right? Like, because we are trying to pander to a more sophisticated palate as well. I'm trying to come up with a product that can be appreciated by both those audiences. It is a real challenge, because what I kept finding in previous experiments is it just kept appealing to one or the other. And your palate is sophisticated, and you're going to be constantly searching for more flavor, and effectively your palate gets bored if there's not enough complexity in there. And trying to balance that approachability with that sort of level of complexity of flavor is tough. And luckily, with the age on this one, the barrel has done the hard work.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so we're gonna kind of keep it going. So we're moving on to lore. So in that frame of reference, and I'm really sorry, but I'm going to pass you to David. So,
McCauley, just so you know, Kurt and I've got a love-hate relationship, and recently it's been a little bit heavier on the hate side. I'm not sure what's going on with Kurt in his personal life, but
it's not true.
I offered to hug him earlier, and he went with a COVID as a reason why I shouldn't.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Dave's too sensitive.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with lore. So given that...
He's moving on.
I'm moving on. That's right.
So, McCauley, I mean, again, kind of getting into the lore and the tradition. I mean, you talked a lot about your family, and it sounds like there's a ton of tradition there. Have you been able to carry any of that tradition over into the process that you guys are using there, if you think about the distilling?
Yes, I mean, I'd like to emphasize that it's just pure coincidence that there's a long family lineage in Tennessee, and tobacco and bourbon, I guess one could think there is some sort of commonality. There's really not. With the lore side of this, I want this to be bigger than me or anybody on our team. With Blue Note, again, being named after the Memphis Blues, we're trying to invoke not only the feeling of an era, birth of the blues, sort of that prohibition speakeasy feel, but with something much bigger that our city and our really regional area that bleeds over into the Mississippi Delta and the arbor from us, that has to do with the blues. And when thinking about our area's biggest contribution to culture, and the thing that we have done to influence culture nationally, internationally, it's through music and food as well, with our barbecue, but through music, through the creation of the blues, which later gave rise to the birth of rock and roll. Memphis is the home of the blues and birthplace of rock and roll. Our city and those early forefathers and ladies and pioneers of that industry really changed our modern culture. So I wanted to tie our product into that grander sense of history that's bigger than any one family, any one person, but our entire region's significance. And then also playing on, not to be cheesy, but playing on like the double entendre of Blue Note, right? The Blue Note is a musical note that is a hybrid note that was pioneered and invented by early blues pickers, but tasting note, right? The Blue Note is a blend or a troubled note. It's a blending of two different notes together that's inherent. I thought that would be a really cool name for a bourbon, because with a great bourbon, you're going to get more than one flavor coming through. It's a hybrid. It's a blend of that. So that's the genesis of the brand in terms of the name and the significance of it. Yep. And I think a lot of folks, there's a lot of brands that are named after people, individuals, or family, and that are focused on that family history. I want to tell a story that's bigger, broader, and more inclusive than just my family or anyone in our group's family.
Yeah. Well, and to pay homage to the place that you're from, and the history behind Memphis, and I mean the intersection of cultures and everything else there. Great city, and love the story behind the name. If you think about kind kind of the craft distilleries like yourself versus, some of the larger distilleries. How what's the dynamic like between the smaller guys that are kind of working their way into the industry versus some of the largers? Do they have a tendency to share and talk? And so, thinking about how did you learn more about distilling and developing your process? Was it collaboration with other distillers, or how did that work?
Yeah. So, luckily, as competitive as the industry is, it is inclusive, and in the sense that the big guys, it's not like a Will Ferrell movie where they're all stereotypes and jerks that want to put down the little guys. But people are inherently inclusive and looking to help and aid. I think probably behind closed doors, they do probably laugh at us, right? Or not like me specifically, but the overall category, because they have all the dollars and the marketing resources and the great recipes. But we started off by actually buying and trading whiskey at a commodity-like level, and that was our first venture into this space, was creating a trading platform that allowed us to invest in bulk whiskey, literally like a commodity. And that was how I was able to get plugged in with some folks that are much bigger and more aged in the industry than I, who were able to pass on a lot of what they had learned about how to build a brand, about how to source inventory. Not to go too far down in the mundane details of the back office side of building a whiskey brand, but I mean, we all know that it has to age, right?
Right.
So we've also probably seen Shark Tank, where Mr. Wonderful, Mark Cuban, or somebody rips the entrepreneur apart for carrying too much inventory on their books. Right? Why do you have 90 days worth of t-shirts on your books? You only need to have just-in-time inventory. Well, in whiskey, we have to carry, for a 4-year-old product, we have to carry 5 years of inventory. For a 9-year-old product, we have to carry 10 years of inventory. There's a phenomenal amount of capital it takes to lay down inventory for your growth projections. And hopefully you're not planning on selling the same volume next year as you are this year. So that is the barrier to entry into this business, and that is where the big advantage, aside from the marketing and everything, it's the ability to finance the inventory. It's the age-old puzzle, really, when it comes to this business.
Well, and I imagine there's a fair amount of stress, too, with putting a batch of 9-year up on the rack and just hoping that it pans out and ends up tasting, what you want it to taste like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And insurance has gotten pretty complex, honestly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Of insuring the barrels, right? And the other interesting thing about whiskey, in the broadest sense, is that it's one of the only commodities or inventories that appreciates in value over time, right? If I'm a cotton trader, cotton trading is pretty big here in Memphis. Yep. It's down in value. It depreciates in value as it ages, it becomes less valuable. So too with those t-shirts or any other widget from any other company is actually appreciating in value. So it's a sort of inverse puzzle when it comes to insuring your assets. It's again, I don't want to bore you guys with this, but I find it to be inherently interesting because
it's fascinating.
It makes it unique, right? In the truest sense, it's different from every other business.
Yeah.
Insuring and appreciating inventory.
Yeah. Well, I think based on your explanation of how we came up with the name, I think Juke Joint is probably the next one we want to try.
Absolutely.
Let's pass this one.
Dave?
Oh, you guys are already ahead of me? I've been talking too much here. Good Lord.
No, this is what I'm actually looking forward to because I had the other two. So.
All right. So, McCauley, what do we need to know about this one?
Well, that's the one I'm drinking right now.
Okay. There you go.
So again, our house proof is the 93 proof. So all three of these products are 93 proof, non-chill filtered. So the Blue Note Juke Joint is so it's a little more of a younger spirit. It's a considerably lower price point. The premium small batch retails for about $50 a bottle. This is $27 to $29.99. Depending on the retailer and the market. So it's more of a volume play. It's now our number one seller. Obviously with the Juke Joint name, it's designed to evoke a little more fun, everyday, you're not as fancy. I think it is every bit as good of a bourbon as the premium small batch. It is a little less smooth, obviously a little less on that leather note, but I think it's surprisingly complex bourbon for sub $30. And I'd put it up against actually anything on the market.
I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, you at that price point, just thinking about the taste, that initial hit, that's a really good taste for sub 30.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's surprising.
Right. You're going to get the vanillas and the a little bit of that butterscotchy maple, but it actually goes a little more complex and interesting with like a crisp pear and almost like a melon or dark cherry note in there. This is the one that I sit there and like try to analyze over and over again. Every time I retaste it, I come up with slightly different or longer explanations of flavor.
Yeah. It's got a nice finish, nice long finish too.
And that's the key though with a bourbon. My palate normally got so bored by the sub 30s. We're so monotone in flavor. They had one flavor and you just get really bored. Trying to come up with something again that's complex, that keeps your palate searching and interested in having that next sip. The key to me for a good bourbon is one that gets better and more complex as you drink it. Yeah. And again, trying to do that in a sub $30 bourbon is extremely difficult. And this took 3 years to develop.
Yeah, it's really good. I like it a lot, and it's different than the first one we tried. If I'm honest with you, like it felt this isn't going to be the right descriptor, but it felt a little flat for me at first when I tried it. But it was like the more I got into it, the better it got. And 3 sips, right? But it also has a really nice finish at the end. It does, and it kind of sits with you, which is really really nice. Because we've had some where like you sip it and it's like gone. It's gone. So this is good. I'm really pleased. I love it. Yeah.
I get a little bit of the mix of like that high alcohol, high evaporation, but it doesn't, like you said, that taste stays with you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm used to like the high evap goes away and the taste goes away, and it's just like a real quick hit, quick burn, and then no flavor.
But you're not picking up any Parmesan.
I got no Parmesan. No. When you said pear, I was like, yes, I'm getting pear.
Not just a pear, but a crisp pear.
That's good. That's good.
So
this is really nice.
So on the branding side, I got to ask. So is it that it's meant to be like a guitar on the front? Is that the whole? Oh yeah, there you go. You got the thing in the U and so forth. That's actually pretty cool.
It's nice.
Yep. And so if you play around with it in the light, you'll see the sparkle of the music notes.
What?
Right? So a juke joint, is a place, it's where the blues, is played live, right? It's sort of like the honky-tonk version of the blues. So the best we'll ever have is down here on Beale Street or in some of our juke joints, or we can go down into the Mississippi Delta of the most authentically fun experience you've ever had. And at a juke joint, you're going to hear some of the best music you've ever heard played from the most casual, common-looking type folks. And it's going to be nothing fancy, but the quality is extraordinary in the entire experience. And so that's what we wanted to embody in the package and the taste of this product. So this one's pretty special to us because in our climate, with our Delta, with a higher humid climate, we lose alcohol every year towards evaporation. So for a product like this is coming out of the barrels at around 120 to 123 proof, somewhere around there. So to get it down to 93, alcohol is pretty volatile, and to cut it down with that much water is quite an interesting process to balance it. So it's exactly right. Like you get that heat on the beginning, and then it kind of dissipates and becomes a lot more. This is a great one for making cocktails. With a $50 bottle in the 9-year, you must feel guilty.
Yeah. Not gonna happen.
Don't do it.
I don't know if I'd do it with this one, to be honest with you. So
McCauley, give us a peek behind the curtains, because a lot of times, the branding is obviously important. We're all marketeers and studying that. So give us a little peek behind the curtain, like on the bottle and the packaging. How did you guys select? They're all obviously different between the 3 that we have in front of us: the rye, the juke joint, and the original small batch premium. So how do you guys decide on the packaging?
Yeah, so the premium small batch has a taller, thinner bottle. I thought what better way to explain or show the hierarchy in price than to
be tall.
What does that make me? That's what I want to know.
We're getting there.
Yeah, there's a growing trend in American whiskeys that's kind of following Scotch of taller, thinner bottles with the higher end stuff. So I thought that was, I don't want to copy anybody, but I wanted to make sure the consumer was aware of like our price hierarchy, because there's a drastic difference between 50 and $27, $29.99. On the juke joint, those musical notes are that's an actual blues song that we had custom written for us. So you can play it. So we wanted to go with something that was simple and authentic. So Nora, our marketing director, and I designed these packages ourselves. This was all done internally. We had the help of a graphic designer to actually make it happen, but we did it all based on our seeing other products, seeing what we wanted, and kind of envisioning in our heads and making it happen. So Blue Note Bourbon, and it is blue. So I'm a big fan of alliteration, right?
That's the attorney coming out.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, it's also the English major.
There you go.
Right, so that sticks, right? It's Blue Note Bourbon, it's blue. It just makes sense.
Yep.
And so on Riverset that we're going to taste in a little bit, a lot of people do green on rye. I don't know why they do green on rye.
Yeah,
Rye
right.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
And to me, reminds me of that terrible experience with Evan Williams. Label.
There you go.
Reminds me of green, like underaged wood or underaged whiskey. So again, Riverset Rye, red,
Yep.
Red is the note that I taste when I taste a rye whiskey. I taste spice, and that would be a red hue. So again, just trying to come up with packaging and names that are significant to our region, but also can be remembered. Right,
Yep.
that's the number one thing
Yeah.
when you're trying to get someone to remember it.
Sure. Well, I love the way you guys also tied the personality of the bourbon itself in with the name. So just when you were kind of describing the juke joint, as a physical place to go and experience different tones and notes and people that may just look normal, but they play incredibly strong quality music. So you guys have obviously put some thought behind the brand itself and the personality. So kudos. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Question: where can I hear the music? Like
You wanna hear the song?
I want to hear the
Yeah.
song. Right? Like I think of the wine, the 19 Crimes, right, where you can scan the face on the front of it and it tells you the story of the wine and so forth. Like I want to hear the music.
Yes, that's going to be added onto the website soon. But one thing I want to do is we're going to do a blues competition, and it's going to change. Right, the winner is going to get their own blues riff on the package.
Very cool. That's cool. I
Very
like
cool.
it.
Well, I think Alton, Derek, and I need to plan a trip to Memphis, and we might invite Kurt. So
You can come. You can come.
Yeah, McCauley, there's a joke, right? They all went. This was before I even knew these. Yeah, anyway, I wasn't invited. And it's a whole long story. It doesn't matter, but it keeps coming up.
His feelings are still hurt.
Yeah,
too,
if
so.
anybody's going to Memphis, it'll be me first.
There you go. I like it. I like
yeah.
it.
So
So
I don't like your barbecue with vinegar sauce, but come on.
there you go. There you go. Well, I'm gonna hand it over to Dew to get us into our third chapter here. So I'm gonna pivot the laptop. Thank you, McCauley.
All right, McCauley. So I've got the section for called libations. We talked about life. We talked about lore. I got the last L, libation. And we're gonna flip it around a little bit more nuts and bolts, a little bit of the chemistry, science, the finance. We talked about the warm and fuzzies and all the brand stuff. But in this particular case, when did you guys start out? I may have missed that in the beginning, but when did you guys open doors?
Yep, the distillery was founded in 2013. We bought it 3 years ago. In August of 2017 is when we closed on the purchase of the distillery, and that's when I went.
Okay, cool. And so, how do you get a 9-year? Like that? That's my. Is it bourbon math? Like, how do you get? Tell us about that.
The way you get a 9-year is by working with other partners in the industry on contract, right? Of finding the flavor profile you want, identifying available inventory that match that flavor profile, and purchasing that product on contract and bringing it in and blending it to make it your own.
Nice. And so if it's blended, it's always hard to get or impossible to get a mash bill on this. Do any of these have mash bills that you guys are like, yep, this is the blend, and so it's going to be more sweet, it's going to be a little more spicy, or in a blend, it's kind of an ish, right? So a lot of our listeners, we just try to help them out, like understand, like when you start to hear a mash bill, can you start to taste it before it's even hit your lips, as far as what you expect it to be?
Yeah, so you probably heard me making a few noises as I'm like biting my tongue. Yeah, so the word blend, right, is a hot topic in the industry. And so when I say blend, I mean mingling barrels together. I do not mean blending. This is a Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey. So, and it is not a blend of straight whiskeys, right? So in the TTB class, a blend of straight whiskeys would have straight whiskeys from different states. So our premium small batch is a straight Tennessee bourbon whiskey that is a combination of two mash bills, 84, 8 and 8, 84% corn, 8% rye, 8% malted barley, and 70% corn, 22, 8, 70% corn, 22% rye, 8% malted barley.
Gotcha.
Proprietary combination, I don't want to say blend.
Yeah, right.
Those two. opposed to mash bills.
Okay, cool. That's very cool.
And in order to achieve consistency on each batch, right, that's where the art form comes in, and it is a little difficult. And as a small batch, we have said consumer beware. Each batch might not taste exactly identical, right?
Which I think is what we look forward to, right? You don't want that mass-produced, just like you said, flat, homogenized, standard flavor. Like I like all right, what bottle number are you on? We've done that a couple of times with some other small, craft distillers, and we're like, all right, we're going to bring 3 bottles from the same place and different bottle numbers, and you're like, yeah, it's just different enough, which is awesome. It's like they're all unique.
Yeah. So another behind the curtain question that we've talked about, McCauley, to that, and thanks for the clarification, like on the mingling there. So you've obviously got a flavor profile you're working toward to get started in the market. With a 9-year, you're using that. Are you now barreling to this same flavor profile with the intent at some point it will no longer be a mixing of these 2 mash bills? It'll be a single mash bill, a single barrel, or is that a different trajectory for you guys?
Yeah, that we actually are. So, but it's a decade out, right?
Right.
Yeah. We'll wait.
We'll call you.
So the mash bill that we're laying down to attempt to move it, and look, it's going to vary.
Sure.
Some is 80, 10, and 10, 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malt and barley.
Yeah.
Look, is it going to taste 10 years exactly the way it does now? No. But as we like to say, it's going to be directionally correct. And what we do stand by is it'll be of the same quality and caliber.
Right.
So when it comes to quality control, with all of our products are small batch, my main focus is not necessarily right now at mimicking exactly the previous batch's flavor profile, but quality. We want it to be very similar, as close as achievable in terms of taste. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we want quality because we do 20 barrel and less batches. We used to actually hand number. We used to hand number each batch and each bottle. We've outgrown that. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but as of today, as of the day of recording, we're distributed in 11 states.
That's great.
With the goal of building these into national brands. I mean, I want to build national craft brands with Blue Note and Riverset. Craft in the sense of quality, not small. Craftsmanship, not craft as in micro.
Yep.
But the main thing we're focusing on is delivering the quality. With those really small batches, you identify some barrels that aren't going to match the exact flavor profile as something that you've ever seen. We find outliers, but we sometimes say this would be a shame not to put this in just because it stands and takes this batch slightly different than the one before, because we still think it's so fun and cool and great that it's something that our customers will appreciate as being that directionally correct flavor and of the same quality.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Very cool.
Now I've got two big questions around that. I mean, back to your question, like airing, depending on when this is airing, this should be out in a week. If I have to learn that intro, it'll be this time next year. But I think if in the next couple of weeks, I think it's pretty solid that this will be up. My 2 questions are, and we can talk about these in order. So first one is flavor profile. Who's helping you figure that one out? English major, law degree, master distiller. Like, is that your next path? And are you creating the flavor profile? And then the second question is, 10 years, a long game. What are you guys doing in between, to keep the lights on, keep things going forward? Like, I'm just fascinated when we talk to distillers and they're like, yep, it's in the barrel. And then you're like, exactly. Hope it tastes great 10 years from now. So first one is, let's talk about you, master distiller, flavor profiles, how you're coming up with those, and is master distiller on your resume now too?
Well, even though I'm a recovering lawyer, I can still answer multiple part questions.
There you go. Remember, I'm lowbrow.
I'm a co-founder and the president and CEO. And I emphasize co-founder because there are other partners of mine that are silent partners that have been very instrumental in getting us off the ground. They were a former mentor to former clients of mine who have a lot of business experience and entrepreneurial investing experience and things with nothing to do with the craft spirits world.
Okay.
But it took an early team to get this going.
Sure.
And so, yeah, right now I've been leading the charge on creating the flavor profile.
Oh, nice.
But I'll emphasize that team aspect because while I'm leading the charge, my say is not the end all say. We take a vote. We kind of operate as a democracy on this. So I will present several blends to our team, not only my partners, but literally every operational person in our team. And we'll vote on it to make sure that what I'm suggesting is right. And look, I'm not always right. We always go with what gets the most votes. So it's better. We break it down, and we've all studied and having to take very basic the intro classes so that we're all speaking the same language and reading from the same sheet of music about how to score these things. But we're really excited to introduce our new director of operations, who will become hopefully our master blender, is Ian Thomas. He was the previous distillery director at the Virginia Distillery.
Nice.
Largest American single malt distillery. He's from Memphis. He and I grew up together.
Oh, that's great.
Went first through 12th grade of first grade through senior year of high school together, and he wants to move back to Memphis, and he's just started this week with us, and I think he's going to ultimately take that over because it's really more in his wheelhouse.
That's fantastic.
Really go forward, bigger picture flavor profile.
That's great. How many folks are, before we go to that, how many folks are wearing the Blue Note hat? Like you said, your team. Like when you talk about a team, are we talking about warehouses full of people or?
Sure. So today we have 14 employees, and then I have 3 other business partners. So I guess in total there's 17 of us.
Nice.
And looking to continue to grow.
That's fantastic.
But in terms of the long-term game, right? We're selling in around 11. We have a number of states coming online in a few weeks, September 1. We're selling in about 11 states. With more states coming online. So those sales are what are keeping the lights on.
Nice.
And we're growing. But to build out our pro formas and projections, right, we are looking 10 plus years in the future. And that is the age-old problem in the industry. And, back in the day, they didn't have Excel, but they could build pro formas.
Yeah.
And we can build some pretty badass Excel sheets that show massive growth. But is it going to happen? Is it going to be there? Are we even going to be alive next year with COVID? I don't know. Yeah. But you ultimately have to build a pro forma and a growth trajectory based on current sales and invest in the future. And that's that leap of faith that every aged brown spirits distilling group has to take. Because the worst thing would be that you achieve sales success and then you don't have the inventory to fulfill those cases.
Yep. Man, you're really striking a balance, which is, it's got to be hard to do, which is, this takes time. You can't rush it. You can go source it from other profiles, to fill a bottle, to get a label out there, to match what you believe you will stand for now and in the future. And then maybe have enough capital and investment into the operations. I mean, it's not something I think you can start in your kitchen or a bathtub like maybe a microbrew and be able to start, barreling it. So, to have enough of that investment base and to know that investment you got to keep the machine going.
Yep.
So look, we don't have a public facing tasting room.
Okay.
We do industry tours. Happy to give you guys a tour. Happy to have you all down. But we have a tasting room. It's industry and invite only.
Yep.
So we're focused on one thing, and that's distribution and building case sales. So the longer margin that one gets from selling, on premise through their tasting room is how most folks build their business. In this industry, we're not going that route, and to go the distribution route, which is where the real enterprise value is, which is where the real sustainable business model is created, takes an immense amount of capital, and it takes a lot of hard work and a ton of luck too. But it's an extraordinarily capitally intensive business. And I think some people think they can create one batch of whiskey or bourbon, sell it, use the proceeds from that to buy or make a little bit more, sell that, and eventually scale it up.
Right.
It's not how it works. You're building a brand. So most people want to talk about the whiskey, the name, the origin, and all of that stuff, which I think is the really fun part of it, the romantic side. But the rubber meets the road in the liquor store and in the bar in terms of sales.
I'm glad you went there.
We are selling in some of the largest, most established countries in the world.
Yep.
And in order to compete with them, it takes, obviously a lot of luck, hard work, a great team, but it takes an immense amount of capital to build that marketing and sales budget.
Right.
So about distributors that we have to sell to a distributor. They then sell to a retailer, a liquor store, or a bar or restaurant. But most people don't understand. And the distributor takes a really heavy margin, around 30%, a 30% margin for just delivering the product.
Yep.
But guess what? You got to pay them a lot more than 30%, or they're never going to push your brand over the other.
Everyone else is paying the 32. Yeah.
Yep. Right. So they don't just push one brand because they think it's better or more saleable. They push it because dollars are invested.
Sure.
And so it takes price support, right? So you have to create incentives for their sales team, incentives in states where it's legal, of course, incentives for the liquor stores to buy the big displays. The reasons why there's displays of certain products at certain liquor stores isn't because this is the most popular products, because someone's invested price support to get that display there.
Yep.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's the art of, and that's the whole consumer product sales, and that's the business we're in, and it's highly competitive. And that's what I really spend most of my time and team's bandwidth thinking about.
Yep. Now, are you getting that from your investors and your partners? That advice of like, here's how you got to be here's some, like you said, pro forma or some Excel formulas to get you started in that space. Or, do they have experience in that?
Look, realistically, no. I mean, we have meetings, and there's all sorts of business acumen, but consumer products is something that we're figuring out together as a team. And, we're having to learn the industry. And one thing I will say as an attorney, the one common skill set that you develop is the ability to absorb a phenomenal amount of information, retain it, and then forget it and move on to the next case or deal. In this instance, I'm just trying not to move on to the next deal. We're trying to learn and go deeper and deeper into this. And I think our team has grown at a remarkable rate. Like this year, we're on pace to hopefully do about 450% sales growth over last year during COVID. Which we're excited about.
So McCauley is North Carolina on the state list?
North Carolina is on the soon to come state list.
Nice.
Very good.
Can't wait.
Very good. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help other than just buying bottles once it hits the shelf. So
yeah, Dave will pick it at.
About one thing. So when I say like realistically, no, it's that we're all learning this and figuring it out together.
Sure.
And I think we've done a really good job. And it's also because I've surrounded myself outside of my business partners with a remarkable operations team, and others have bought into this vision. Our CFO, Logan Welk, who took the leap of faith as well, leaving one of the big four accounting firms to join us. There's an immense amount of math, immense amount of finance and forecasting that goes into this. It takes that kind of mind to build one of these businesses. Nora Boone, our marketing director, took that leap of faith and left the cosmetics industry to come on with us and has brought all of furnishing. So we've combined a lot of people without a lot of industry experience together and are trying to figure it out. But the one area I will say that we realized we could not just do based on trying to figure it out and learn and be new was the sales side. So we really focused on hiring a killer experienced sales team.
Gotcha.
That's smart.
I've got two more questions. So one's a big question, and I know that you had, you used bourbon during, studying for the bar as a way to sleep. But what's keeping you up at night? And then the second question, because you can handle this as a lawyer, back-to-back questions. What's the one thing you didn't plan for? When you set out and you're like, I got it all figured out, or I got enough of it figured out, and then this one thing slid up on you, and you're like, dang, did not think of that. So those two, what's keeping you up at night, and what's the one thing you didn't plan for?
So what keeps me up at night has evolved over time. It used to be simple things and the uncertainty. As an entrepreneur, you learn to live in the uncertainty, and almost no curveball can be thrown at you that actually surprises you. To me, to be surprised or to get frustrated means like you literally couldn't see it coming. I think we've done a good job of anticipating. If we haven't anticipated it, we've anticipated that something similar is at least a possibility. What keeps me up at night now is we are growing very rapidly and expanding and thinking about how to best service our distributor partners and our retail partners and maintain the same level of quality that we started out with as we grow. I don't want to be that company that cuts corners in order to meet purchase orders, right?
Yep.
Like we're obviously all about building a business, but we want to do it right. We want to maintain that quality, and we want to get better at delivering even higher quality, better blends as we grow. The biggest thing that was not anticipated, or it wasn't even that it wasn't anticipated. I'll say I'm gonna tweak your question and say the hardest challenge or one of the biggest obstacles isn't the capital, it isn't the competition, it's building the team, and it's more of like the personal relationships. And as one of my partners and mentors told me, that good management is the rarest of all commodities.
Wow.
And at first, I didn't really appreciate what that meant, because what management? It's just me and a couple of guys on the team. We're doing all the time. As you grow, you learn that success is going to be achieved through delegating responsibilities and building out the team. And there is management comes into it as that team gets bigger. And I now, having gone through a couple more years, and COVID has had a way of bringing everything that could come to a head. We've had a good amount of turnover, not planned or laid off turnover, but people have resigned. Some people have had to be terminated. We've hired new people. That has been one of the hardest things, is managing people, managing expectations, and then also understanding that like the only thing sure in life is going to be change, especially when it comes to our team. And certain people are going to get on and off the bus as we grow.
Yep. I love it. Great answers.
Yep.
I mean, it's really, really good stuff.
It sounds like you've got some good mentors and some smart mentors as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
So it's the third bottle.
I know. It's funny because
I feel like we almost lost sight of the third bottle.
No, I've been trying to find a way into it other than tell us about Riverset Rye.
so smooth there.
It is so smooth.
It is, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm not a rye guy. Like Kurt keeps bringing up rye, and we're like, dude, it's not bourbon, but the rye shows up, and I know Krat's a rye guy.
I like rye.
Alton, are you a rye guy?
Not usually.
Yeah, I always associate rye with just a high burn bite, and so I've never been. It's never been on my list of things to try. But tonight I've got a glass right here. Tell us about it.
So just like the same approach we took with bourbon of wanting to deliver a really high quality product that can be appreciated by the aficionados, we're still focused on getting people into the category. Same thing with rye.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times when we first started producing rye that we'd go and do tastings, and people would say, "Oh, I don't like rye." And you'd say, "Hey, have you ever had a rye?" I said, "Well, no, I've never tried a rye." So like, how do you know if you don't like it if you've never tried it?
Yeah.
So we're a product that could get people interested in rye. And that's what I think we've achieved with Riverset. We just won double gold in a number of competitions. So it's going to be a little more approachable, a little less spicy than otherwise. It's going to start off with a really heavy vanilla nose that is going to be followed up with a green apple cinnamon, very crisp mid palate, and then that like green apple smooth vanilla finish. It's different from most ryes you've ever had. It's a little less spicy. It's a little more crisp, and I think it's overall a lot more drinkable.
I agree. I'm not a typically a rye fan for whatever reason. The pepper overwhelms me, whatever. But the way you just walk through the tasting profile, totally agree. And it is different than any rye I've had.
Well,
So
in reading the bottle, what I think McCauley just described was the Rye Rebellion.
Oh,
there you go.
the
Bringing
Riverset
the
Rye
smooth, bringing the smooth to rye, which
So
Yeah.
I love rye, and that's a really good rye.
So Riverset's its own whole brand. It's got its own website. It's obviously got its own name. It's not Blue Note's Riverset Rye. It's its own cola, its own trademark, so its own brand. And yeah, on the back of the label, you'll read about how we were frustrated that all ryes were either too hot and some that don't go into the back of the list, or they just all have the same flavor profile. And that's the MGP minty rye note. The MGP makes a hell of a good rye, but there's a very distinct flavor characteristic to it that's a very minty, earthy note.
Okay.
And in order to differentiate ourselves on the shelf, we had to come up with something that had a different flavor profile. So we call it the Rye Rebellion, of proving that rye can be inherently drinkable and smooth, but yet still be a rye. Like, it still has that cinnamon note, allspice note that you associate with the rye, but more drinkable through the crisp apple note and just the inherent vanillins in our maturation process, that vanilla flavor. It's called Riverset Rye because Memphis is set along the banks of the Mississippi River. It's, of course, got the red label because I love alliteration, Riverset Rye red. It features a riverboat, not just because you see them when you come to Memphis, but because riverboats were how they transported barrels of whiskey up and down the river, and it was effectively the whiskey highway. And our saying for Riverset, besides "Join the Rye Rebellion," is our trademark slogan, which is "Go Against the Current." Because the riverboat was one of the first, the steamboat was one of the first inventions that allowed people to easily go upriver, right? Like floating downriver, up
Easy.
down, everybody
Piece of cake.
Easy.
Yeah,
But
everyone
so
does it once.
We use the riverboat now. We're trying to build it into our symbol for rebellion and blazing your own trail. Go against
That's
the
pretty
current.
awesome.
That's what we think we've done with this. And we think by drinking rye in general, you're going against the grain, going against the current of bourbon. So again, we've
I like it. You thought a lot about it.
And all this stuff. But
Now, I don't know much about rye. I've just been learning about bourbon. Does it have a mash bill too? And is it in a barrel? Like, are there rye rules?
Yeah, of course. So of course, it's, whiskey, is the greater category, American whiskey, bourbon rye. To be a straight rye whiskey, it has to follow very similar definitions to bourbon. It has to be aged in a new chartered barrel.
Okay.
But it has to be 51% rye.
Okay. Got it.
Instead of corn, as the name suggests. So the mash bill of our Riverset Rye, it's a Tennessee rye whiskey, 95% rye, 5% malted barley. That is kind of the extreme high rye mash bill. So there's no corn.
No corn at all.
Flavor of grain other than rye. You have the malt and barley in there for their enzymes during the fermentation process. But it's effectively, some people now, some craft folks, are like 100% rye.
Sure.
I haven't had any of those that I really care for 100% anything. You need that malted barley for its enzyme in the fermentation process to really balance it out. Around 30% of your flavor is going to be created based on your grain content and during that fermentation process. But then that balance, that 70% comes from the oak. And so in our really warm climate here in Memphis, we average around 6 degrees warmer per annum than does Middle Tennessee. And so we think that extra heat and that extra humidity is extracting out more of those vanilla notes in the barrels.
Oh, the barrel, yeah.
So this one is a particular sentiment or important to us and our team because our first batches of it honestly weren't that good. We created some batches. We internally loved it, right? We went out to market and the market told us, hey, guys, you guys have some work to do on this. And we listened. We went back to it. We analyzed it and we tweaked our blend. We put a lot more care in curating which barrels were going into this and which barrels we needed to set aside and let further age for the process. And we think we've honed in on the winner here.
And how long are these aged? Is like bourbon has a minimum 2 or 5, 4? Is it anything similar in the rye space?
Yeah. So to be a straight whiskey, no matter what category, it has to be at least 2.
Yep.
Riverset is over 4. So
Okay.
It's a 4-year-old, medium. 93 proof as well. Again, that's our house proof because 1930s, the century, the 9, the 3, the decade of the 30s is when the blues were blowing up.
We were wondering. We were wondering. Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Yes,
I like it.
That's when Prohibition was repealed.
I love it.
Yeah, our
good
favorite
day.
holiday.
This is awesome. All right, I'm gonna hand it over to Alton.
All right.
Stare at his mug for a
we're
while.
in the home stretch, man. There's this could go on for days. I'm sure you're getting tired. So one question for me. I don't know how much you know about the Bourbon Boys and Bourbon On, but we basically started as a ragtag support group. So we figured out that, hey, we're going through the same things in life. We're going through the same things at work, the same job changes, the same career challenges. All of us are raising kids, getting ready to send them off to college. So we figured out that, God, why are we doing this alone when we've got people that we could lean on and, basically lift us up, watch our backs, etc.
And drink with.
And drink with. Well, the bourbon is what
More
keeps us coming
importantly,
back.
drink with, right?
So for you, McCauley, you've talked about, your buddy Joe's wine and liquor store. You got Ian coming back from a long time. But beyond that, just through the whole journey, as you've hit stress points and you were, talking through, was this the right thing to do? Should I make this jump from my, my solid lawyer job, attorney, into this, proprietorship role to get those partners together? So who would you give a shout out to? Who would you look back and say, these are the folks that, are my version of the Bourbon Boys, who I reach out to, who I trust to tell me it's a good idea, a bad idea? Who would that be?
So obviously, aside from my family, just supporting my mom cried and my dad was really upset when I first quit. I have to give a shout out to my 3 guys that took the first leap of faith in me, and that's Steve Tanzer, Rob Del Priori, and Frank Watson. Those are my 3 business partners.
Yep.
Those guys who believed in the initial concept of our idea, took the leap of faith with me to invest with me the initial capital to do this. And they are still right there by my side through thick and thin. And the guys that are going to help us build, Blue Note Bourbon into a household brand name, hopefully one day, right? And it's not without its challenges. Any startup group, there's going to be, it's sort of like a marriage, right? You're in it for the long haul, through thick and thin. You really get to learn more about the partners you're with, but you ultimately learn a lot about yourself. And I have to give a shout out to them because without those 3 remarkable guys, this would not be here. I wouldn't be sitting in front of you all today, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to chase a dream and a passion. So, cheers to them.
Cheers to those guys. Amen.
That's right.
That's great. That's great. So I think, this has been a lot of fun for us. We close all our episodes with a portion called Last Call. So there's a scenario, and then basically the idea is of what we've sampled tonight, what would be the drink of choice. So with the Blue Note premium small batch in front of us, the Blue Note Juke Joint and the Riverset Rye, the scenario is, and McCauley, we'll let you lead off, is you're going to go to a new set of investors. You can take one drink with you, one of these 3, to convince them that, hey, you guys should get on board with what we're doing. So with that group of investors in the room, what do you give them a glass of and why?
So look, I got to give them the Blue Note Juke Joint because that's really ultimately our baby, and it's now becoming our number 1 seller, even though we only launched it in July.
Wow. Okay.
That I would pitch them on it because one, at its age and price point, it's going to have higher volume potential.
Yep.
Every man, every person, everywhere type whiskey. It's a drinking whiskey, not a sipping whiskey. I think we've over-delivered in taste and quality relative to price at $29.99, $27, $29.99. And I think it has legs to scale into a national brand with serious volumes one day. And when you measure quality relative to price, if you took that ratio, I think this delivers day in, day out, and all of our markets have recognized it.
Yep. Can't argue with that. Kurtron.
So I'm kind of torn. I'll be honest with you, which is probably not unusual for you guys. But I gotta go with the Blue Note, just the small batch. Here's my reason why. So I'm kind of with McCauley on the whole, like the taste and the profile for the price point. Pretty amazing on the juke joint, but there is something about that Blue Note that I find so appealing. And what I really love about it is that it's not just for the highbrow, as McCauley calls us.
Mistakenly.
Yeah, mistakenly.
That's so funny in itself.
It is, but it's a bourbon that I think appeals not only just to those who are really like into bourbon and appreciate a very good quality bourbon, but those who are just kind of coming into it as well. So I think the diversity of it and the appeal, or the approachability, as McCauley called it, I think that would be my call to like bring those guys in and hook them on coming in and investing. So,
all right,
Wow.
Very good, Krat.
Yeah, so before I do this, I got to give McCauley some major props as well as your marketing director, because there's 4 guys here with a fair amount, if you will, of marketing experience for some pretty damn big companies, and what you guys have put together in terms of matching these brands with the personalities of the actual liquor themselves is really amazing. So congratulations on that. I got to go with the Rye Rebellion. I'm not going to lie.
Of course.
I do like a rye. I like a little pfeffery. But at the end of the day, I think I like the strategy, McCauley, of what you guys have tried to do in terms of taking something that is pretty niche in terms of a flavor profile and making it more approachable. So I'm all about the Riverset.
All right.
So where's Dew going?
I'm in the juke joint. I think that there's
It's a
something.
guitar player.
Yeah. I love everything that you described about this, McCauley, about it being really the spirit of Memphis. I'd want to have that drink in a juke joint with them and go, if you
For
like
sure.
this, the next time you get to try the 9.
Yeah.
But for right now, man, if you would close it with me, you would close it with a juke joint.
Yeah.
Because it embodies something that just is so
spirit.
unique. It is. It's so emotional. It's such a spirit of what Memphis stands for. You figured out how to put it in a bottle. Like that's just impossible to do, and you guys just absolutely killed it. So I love that one.
All right. And I'm going to go, nobody's going to see this coming, and my wife will hear this, and she'll be like, you're sucking up. But I'm going to the rye.
God,
I am
seriously?
I am such the anti-rye guy usually, but what you guys have done is, the storyline to me with the investors is, look, you took a category that somebody was totally not comfortable in, didn't enjoy, and you did something with it. You set out to solve the opportunity, and you found the sweet spot to play.
Amen, brother.
So I'm going rye.
You converted Alton, so that's I'll give you credit for that.
Yeah.
So
Hey, and that's a $29.99 bottle too.
Can't beat it. Can't beat it.
There you go.
Well, we're excited about North Carolina being on the list.
Yes, we are. McCauley, thank you so much for dedicating your time for us and working with us on the schedules. This has been awesome. You taught us so much and gave us a great view of Blue Note. You guys are doing amazing things. Congrats on your success. We're excited to see more states coming up just around the corner.
For sure.
Well, thank you all so much for having me, because also we couldn't build these brands or do any of this without the help of folks like you all. So thank you so much.
Well, next time we're in Memphis, I know the first place we're going.
Yeah, my wife's got some family there. They're so proud of being from Memphis. I want to hear more about what you guys are doing in the community, so we're going to look you guys up when we're up that way.
Give us a shout. Thanks.
All right, gentlemen, it's been fun. And until next time,
till next time,
bourbon on.
Bourbon on.
bourbon on.
Cheers.
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 Cheers. Thanks, McCauley.
Thank you all, seriously. And honestly, anytime you are in town, we're going to get some barbecue, drink some good whiskey, and have a big time.
You had me a whiskey and barbecue.
We'll be there soon.
Two of my favorite things.
I'll pull the car around.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a note.
Thanks, McCauley. Appreciate it.
Have a great day, okay?
See you, bud.
Thank
care.
you too.